Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel, Maths Made Easy with Terry in 10 minutes. So we'll talk about completing the square method now when a is equal to 1. All right, so please try as much as possible to review the previous video. And please remember, if you've not subscribed, do it now so that you will not forget. And when I upload new videos, you'll be the first to know. So click the notification bell as well. So let's get straight to it. So we're going to start with the first one. Just to remind you, I told you the general expression of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus what? C, all right? So we said it 1,001 times. So in this case, we want to use the complete square method when a is equal to 1. So that means the a value is equal to 1. So something like we have x squared plus 5x minus 7, for instance. And you were told to solve this using the complete square method, all right? So it is very important for us to know what to do. So the 7 rules, I have 7 rules or 7 steps on how to do it, all right? The first thing is that you have to first draw a pair of brackets containing x. Okay, so you draw a pair of brackets containing x, all right? So you draw a pair of brackets containing x. Then you put a square outside. So you're going to put with a square outside. Okay, so when you're done with that, then number 2, you then insert after the x the sign of b. So that means depending what the sign of b is, you're going to put it, insert it outside in front of the x. Okay, so in front of the x, you're going to put the sign of b. I'm going to explain how to do it. It's very simple. The sign of b, okay, within the bracket. So you're going to put this within the bracket. Okay, now when you're done with that, the next step you then have to do, you then have to now divide b by 2. So you then have to then divide b by 2, okay? And you then put the resultant value after the sign. And you now put the resultant value after the sign. Okay? But this has to be within the bracket, all right? I'm going to explain that to you. It has to be within the bracket. So at this stage, you have to ignore the sign at this stage when you're doing it. So you ignore the sign. You ignore the sign of b, all right? So ignore the sign at this stage. Okay, so because you already sorted out the sign in step 2. Is that okay? I'm going to explain it. Then when you're done, then you now square the value of b. Okay, and not just the value. So I'll put it like this. I'll say the value of b divided by 2. I think that will make more sense. Okay, so if I put it this way, it will be easier for you to understand. The value of b divided by 2. Number 5. Then you now subtract step 4 from step 3. So what I'm trying to say is that it's going to be step 3, the answer you get from step 3, minus the answer you get from what? Step 4. Then when you're done, number 6. So number 6, when you're done with that, the next thing that you have to do, you then have to add c. Then number 7. So at this stage, when you add c, you've gone up to the completing the square. Then step 7, if they ask you to solve, then you have to introduce step 7. So step 7, you then simplify, okay? Then Step 8, you then equate to 0 and solve for x. Okay, so it's better I write it as 8 rules or 8 steps then, okay? Let me write it as 8 steps. Okay. So 8 steps. All right, so that will be that for that. So we draw a pair of brackets containing x with a square outside. You insert after the x the sign of b within the brackets. Now you then divide the bracket. Then you now divide b by 2, and you now put the resultant value after the sign within the bracket. So you ignore the sign at this step. You square the value of b divided by 2. You now subtract step 2 from step 3. You then add c. So when you get to step 6, complete the square method is done. So basically step 7 and step 8 is when you're solving, okay? When you're asked to solve, then you have to do step 7 and step 8, okay? I'm going to solve one question with this, or two, to just make it easier. So let's assume we have x squared plus 4x minus 5. Okay? And we're told to solve this using complete the square method or completing the square method. So what's the first step to do? So remember, the first thing you have to be sure before you use this method, a must be equal to what? 1. So if you check it, a is 1. B is equal to 4, and C is equal to minus 5. So before you start using this method, so remember in this video, I'm only focusing on complete the square method when A is equal to 1. So because A is equal to 1 here, then I can use it, okay? So let's go. Step 1, draw a pair of brackets containing x with a square outside. So you just come to this point here. Step 1. You're going to draw a pair of brackets. Okay. We just draw a bracket. Okay. Good. We're done with step 1. Easy. Now, step 2. Okay. Step 2 now said, we're done with step 1. Step 2 now said, insert after x the sign of b within the bracket. So what is the sign of b here? You can see that b is positive. Are you seeing it? The sign of b. B is positive. So there's going to be x plus squared. That make sense? Nothing else. Step 3. Are you seeing how simple it is? When you've done that, the next thing you have to do, you now have to divide b by 2 and put the resultant value after the sign within the bracket. So now in this case, you ignore, can you see? I said ignore the sign at the step. So that means you're not interested. If it's plus or minus, does not matter. Just pick the value of b. B is 4. So it's going to be 4. Okay. So that will give us, because we know, let me put it this way first. Let me write it, the value of b first. So b is equal to 4, right? So then I can now say b over 2 will become 4 divided by 2, and that will give us 2. So b over 2 is equal to 2. So we're going to write it in front now. So it's going to be x plus 2 all squared. Are you seeing it? The next thing is what? Step 3. Okay. So sorry, step 4. Now step 4, we go back. We now have to square the value of b divided by 2, okay? So let's go back. The b divided by 2 is from step 3. We got was what? 2. We're now told that we have to square the value for that. So that means we're going to square b divided by 2 all squared, all right? And that will give us 2 squared, and that will give us what? 4. Step 5. He now said subtract step 4 from step 3. So that means technically it's going to be step 3 minus step 4. Let's go back. What is step 3? We got this step 5. For step 3, we got x So remember it's step 3 minus step 4, right? Step 3, we had step 3 to be x plus 2 all squared minus step 4 is what? 4. Then steps 5, oh, sorry, this is step 5 already. Yes. So now step 6 said we should add what? C. So we're going back, step 6. We're going to add C. What is our C? Minus 5. So it's going to be x plus 2 all squared minus 4 plus our C is what? Minus 5. So because it's plus and minus, so plus times minus will give you minus. So it's going to give us x plus 2 squared minus 4 minus 5. So minus 4 minus 5 is going to be, so we're going to the simplified stage already. That is step 7. Okay. So step 7 said we should what? Simplify. So we're going to simplify now. So it's going to give us x plus 2 squared minus 4 minus 5 will give us minus what? 9. Now, at this stage, we're done with completing the what? The square. So this is completing the square for this. But in some cases, you might be told to then find the value for x. So that's the reason why we have to now go to step 8 and step 9. Is that okay? So step 8 said we should equate to 0 and solve for x. So that means step 8 now, we then have to what? Equate to 0. So it's going to be x plus 2 all squared minus 9 is equal to 0. Take 9 to the other side. Will be x plus 2 squared is equal to what? 9. Divide both, square root both sides to get this square out. So we're going to have square root of this and square root of that. So this will cancel this. So it's going to be x plus 2. So we have x plus 2 is equal to square root of 9. So remember I told you that when you have square root, it's going to be plus or minus what? 3. Then x, you take x to the other side, so it's going to be minus 2 plus or minus what? 3. So the answer for this is going to be x will be equal to minus 2 plus 3, or you have it as minus 2 minus 3. So minus 2 plus 3 will give you 1. Minus 2 minus 3 will give you minus what? 5. So then, for this question now, all right, the answer for this is going to be, so for this question, the answer for this is going to be x is equal to 1 or minus 5. Are you seeing it? So if, for instance, you just said to leave it in vertex form or complete the square form, you will stop here, all right? But in the case, you're meant to solve it all the way through, all right? Let me do one more question on this now so that it will make, just to solidify the concept I just introduced. All right. So let's pick another question here and let's see what we can do. All right. So let's say we have number 2. We have x squared minus 4x minus 5. All right. So what you can do, you can pause the video here. All right. And try and solve it. Then when you're done, you come back and see if you got the same thing I got. All right. So let's start. So the first thing you have to be sure you get the value for A, B, and what? C. So you make sure the value for A, B, and C are correct. But remember the method we're talking about today is A must be equal to 1. So you can see the A is equal to 1. Then that means we have to use the method we talked about. So step 1, you put out a pair of brackets. Do you remember? You draw a pair of brackets containing an x with a square outside. So you do the same thing. So it's going to be x. Okay. Step 2. You then put a sign for the b. The sign we have here is what? Minus, all right? So if you look at it, b is equal to minus 4. So because there's a minus in the b, we then just put a sign there. So it's going to be x minus all squared. Are you seeing it? Now, step 3. So step 3 now said, the next step you need to do is to divide b by 2, all right? Then put the resultant value after the sign within the bracket, okay? So remember, the b value, you have to ignore the sign. So keep in mind is you have to ignore the sign of b. Is that okay? So you ignore the sign of b, all right? So ignore the sign of b of this step. So let's go back. So the b was minus 4, so we're going to ignore it. So we're going to have 4. Does that make sense? So you just need only the number here. Then we're looking for b divided by 2, and that will give us 4 divided by 2, and that will give us 2. So that means we're going to put the 2 now in the bracket. So it's going to be x minus 2 all squared. Now the next part is step 4. So we've gotten up to this point. Step 4 now said we should square the value of b divided by 2. So that means the first thing we need to do, the b divided by 2 we had the value to be what? 2 squared. Sorry, we had the value to be 2. All right. We had a value to be 2, but we're meant to square b divided by 2. So that's going to give us what? 2 squared. All right. And 2 squared is going to be equal to what? 4. Step 5 now said we need to subtract step 4 from step 3. So that means technically is step 3 minus step 4. So step 5, okay, is equal to step 3 minus step 4. So step 3 we got is what? X minus 2 all squared. That was step 3, all right? Minus step 4 is going to give us what? 4. Next part is step 6. Now, for step 6, we need to add what? C, all right? So let's go. Step 6. Let me write it up here to get more space. So step 6, we need to add C to the answer. So we have x minus 2 squared minus 4 plus, what is our C? Minus 5, all right? So plus times minus will give us minus. So it'll be x minus 2 squared minus 4 minus what? 9. Are you seeing it? So now if you look at this now, step 7 said we should simplify. So step 7, we simplify. So it's going to be x minus 2 squared minus 4 minus, minus 4. I made a mistake here. It's minus 5, not minus 9. All right. So I was thinking faster. So minus 4 minus 5 will give us minus what? 9. All right. So we're done with that. So that means this is the completing the square format for this question. All right. So if they ask you to leave it in a vertex form or in a complete the square form, you leave it here. But in most cases, you'll be asked to find a value for x. So that's why we go to step 8. Okay. Step 8. And step 8 said you have to then equate it to be equal to 0 and you solve for x. Okay. So let's go. We equate this to be 0. So it's going to be x minus 2 all squared minus 9 is equal to 0. You take 9 to the other side. With x minus 2 squared is equal to 9. To remove the squared, we take the square root of what? Both sides. So this will cancel this. And I have x minus 2 The square root of 9 is equal to plus or minus 3. Remember, when you press your calculator, it's going to only give you 3, all right? But you need to know that for square root, you have to write plus or minus. Is that okay? Then you take 2 to the other side. So x is going to be equal to 2 plus or minus what? 3. So therefore, we can now say x is equal to 2 plus 3, and x is equal to what? 2 minus 3. So 2 plus 3, that will give us 5. 2 minus 3, that will give us minus 1. All right? So now, based on this, now we can now say, for this question, x is equal to 5, or x is equal to minus what? 1. And that is that for that. So you can go to the worksheets, go to the textbook, and try as much as possible to solve more questions. Is that okay? Try as much as possible to solve more questions and see if you can use complete the square method to solve the question. All right? So we solved the question, which was x squared plus 4x minus 5. We solved another one, which was both minus, so x squared minus 4x minus 5, and we got the answers for both of them. All right, so I'm going to move to the next one. The next concept I'm going to talk about is how do you solve complete the square method when a is not equal to 1. So we've been talking about a equal to 1. So that means talking about things like x squared plus 4x. You can see the a is 1. But the next video I'm going to talk about is that when you have something like 3x squared plus 4x minus 1, or you have something like 3x squared minus 3x squared plus 4x minus 2, something like that. So you can see in this example here that a is not equal to 1. How do you then what? Solve it. All right, so I'm going to see you in the next video. And if you have any question, please feel free to send me a message or email me. Or if you're concerned, you can stop me anywhere you see, and we can have a chat about it. Also, don't forget to subscribe so that when I click on the notification bell, so when I upload a new video, you'll be the first person to know. So I'm going to see you in the next video where we talk about how do we complete the square when a is not equal to 1. All right, see you soon.